The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small, and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Welcome to the Podcast of Power. We are talking about The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, Episode 3, Adar. Of course, I am Mike White, your host. Joining me is the mostest with the hostess. What? Chris Stachiw.
Take me to the one they call Adar. We had talking orcs in this episode. I'm so happy.
Talking orcs that can't stand the sun.
Oh, right. But I was waiting for one of them to ask about maggoty bread. For 3 stinking days.
Oh, yeah. So we are continuing our walk through a whole lot of different storylines. And I think the one that gets the most play is Galadriel at Numenor. That feels like it takes up a lot of the time. And yeah, we've got a lot of castle intrigue type stuff going on here. Stuff about a king that we don't see. A friend of the elf. Yeah. Wow. What'd you think of this episode, Chris?
So we're finally getting into the part of this show where they're introducing characters now that we have ostensibly heard of. So I mentioned in the last episode, oh, that's Isildur at the end of the second episode. Apparently I'm wrong. That's Elendil, Isildur's father, which again, if you've seen The Fellowship of the Rings, which if you haven't, how are you watching this show?
I know. Weird.
Yeah. If you've seen that at the beginning of that movie, the king gets murdered by Sauron. Isildur cuts off Sauron's fingers. He loses the Ring of Power. This old hat at this point. So that's a main part of this. And we have not, again, in film medium, seen these characters walking, talking, doing anything more than Cate Blanchett narrating. So it's interesting. I was it's Game of Thrones, but doesn't have that nasty edge that Game of Thrones does. And that's, again, George R.R. Martin was kind of taking the piss out of J.R.R. Tolkien in a way. Tolkien's very not wholesome, but not Martin. And Martin's like the opposite of that. It's a little bit more real, a little less fantastical.
I haven't seen one episode of Game of Thrones, so I'm going to buy
which I find immensely interesting. Like, I would be curious what your take on that show would be as someone who loves Lord of the Rings as much as you do. Because again, like, you know, you and I are close in age, but you read these books growing up.
Oh, yeah.
So like you have this like leg up on me with the amount of like time you've spent with this narrative. And I would be curious to see like what your take would be on something that like its intent almost is in a lot of ways as a subversive response to Tolkien. I mean, George R.R. Martin's R.R. That is in reference to Tolkien. That's intentional. So, you know, I mean, Martin has spouted his mouth off about plenty of Tolkien stuff recently. Like Gandalf should have stayed dead. Like, we don't care. Guy, like, shut up. Come on.
Why don't you get busy working on that last book, buddy?
There's another show on right now that's taking up way too much of his time, and that this show is being compared to almost damn near constantly. I don't think I can read an article about this show without them talking about House of the Dragon.
Well, we're not going to talk about House of the Dragon.
Thank God.
If you want to hear Chris talk about House of Dragon, go over to Game of Bros. You can hear him talk all about that.
Right,
but
yeah.
over here, we're talking about some Tolkien-esque type stuff.
Esque, I think. There's some esque. There is some esque-ness in this episode, I think.
Yeah. So I've heard of Numenor, and this is the first time I believe we get to see it, this little island kingdom over here to the west of Middle-earth. And that's where we end up with Galadriel and what's the name of this other guy? Valinor, I think it is.
Halbrand.
Thank you.
Definitely not the Witch King of Angmar.
No, he's not. At least not yet.
Not yet, but everything with his character felt like it. You've never seen Game of Thrones, but yet I would contend that scene that takes place in the alleyway with his character is Game of Thrones in its presentation. Especially the scene where the guy's arm gets snapped. I don't know what this show's obsession with bone breaking is, but I noticed in the intro to this episode they re-showed the ankle snapping with the Hobbit.
Yes, what the fuck?
And I was thinking to myself, I can't wait to talk about this with Mike because I know how much he didn't like it the first time we saw it. But then in this episode, a guy gets his arm braced up against a door jamb and then snapped backwards. And you get to see the whole thing in like brutal CGI special effects. And like that is Game of Thrones-esque. That has really there's nothing like that in any of the Lord of the Rings stuff that we've seen. Even that ankle thing was a lot.
Yeah.
Oof. It's pretty brutal. Man. Like that scene with Halbrand and those kind of Numenorians who are telling him to get out, make Numenor great again. I mean, I don't know what else that's in reference to, but they're saying things like, first you come for our jobs. And it's like, oh my.
Yeah, they took our jobs.
Yeah, they took our jobs. What's next? Our women? Like, oh, fucking give me a break.
Yeah, this whole thing of like evil coming from the south. I'm just like, you mean like Mar-a-Lago? What?
Well, I mean, so in the story, The Lord of the Rings, the Southlands become Mordor.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The Southlands are where Mount Doom is. Mount Doom explodes, turning that whole area into Mordor. That's coming in this season.
I have not watched any of the previews, anything, and I do not watch the coming next week stuff.
Really?
Either. I am watching these episodes. That's it. I stayed away specifically from the previews. The only thing I saw was that teaser that we talked about last week, the one with the metal, the molten
which
metal.
I never even saw.
Oh.
I actually didn't watch any of the promotional stuff for this until like people were like I was reading things online, which I shouldn't be doing, but find myself doing anyways. But but again, the whole thing about this show that I think I wasn't expecting, and I don't think they did a very good job of letting the audience know how dark this show probably is going to get. Because I think this show is going to get pretty dark.
I mean, it's the rise of evil. It should get dark. Yeah.
Right. And it's the rise of evil with there. I mean, the evil does die at the end. So we do know. I mean, again, like that happens in the Fellowship. Like this is not anyone spoiling anything.
Right.
Like that happens at the beginning of the Fellowship movie. That's already happened in the books by the time we get to that story. So yeah, we know where this is going. But yeah, this is like the rise and the vanquishing of evil. Because I mean, I'm assuming the people who fought Sauron initially, when they passed on at the end of their lives, they didn't assume Sauron would come back again.
Right.
Nobody did for 2,500 years almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It feels so foreign, but it does feel very familiar.
Yeah,
I don't know how else to explain it. Like Numenor feels weird, but at the same time, it does feel kind of Gondor-esque.
Well, tell me, because we were confused over here watching it, and I've watched this episode a couple times because I was a little confused because of the white tree. What's going on with the white tree in Numenor? Because I'm like, wait, there's a white tree in Gondor.
I believe the white tree from Numenor gets uprooted and planted, or a seed from it is planted in Gondor. That tree comes to to Middle Earth. It's like this way. This story is so weird to me because it's like a lot of the stuff that's happening. Like we see it in the context of those other movies and nothing is made of it. Mm-hmm. Like we're seeing this imagery and we're seeing these other things. And here it's like, no, here's the tree. And the tree is just, this is the original tree. And I believe that tree is a tree from a seed from the tree that was in Valinor to begin with.
Right. Okay.
So, but the thing is with Numenor is the Numenorians, like they mentioned in this episode, they were given the island because they sided with the elves and they helped the elves defeat Morgoth. But the humans didn't side with the elves, but these humans did.
But something has happened that they have now rejected the elves and drove the king out, basically. Now he's a prisoner in his own tower because they dislike the elves so much or something. And I'm like, all right, we got to find out what's going on here, why the elves are no longer welcome here.
Right. And I don't know. It seems like we're not going to figure that out. Right. We don't figure it out in this episode.
Not in this episode. No.
But I mean, it seems like at the end of this episode, they're setting it up for them to leave Galadriel and Isildur and Elendil and I guess his daughter as well. So they're setting that up for them to leave to go to Middle Earth. At least Isildur is going to take him. But again, we know where they end up. So we know Elendil has to get to Middle Earth somehow at some point.
Well, and it's weird, too, because of this whole thing of the daughter reapplying for some sort of guild ship or something, and she got it now. And the father's like, well, they never reconsider anybody. I was like, okay, is there like weird political things going on behind the scenes? Because then also at the very end, when the queen is like, the elf has come, and it's like, all right, is this a prophecy that you're talking about now?
And the show is, so again, like a lot of this stuff, I don't want to say too much because it's covered in the Silmarillion. Like some of the stuff is like not these. So like that House of the Dragon show, the things that the reason these shows are so easily compared right now is because they're both drawing from source material events, not source material dialogue and character dialogue. And does that make sense? Those events are described in the books, but it's like a couple sentences. They're like taking this and like blowing this into a season or two's worth of story arc. So there are things happening in Numenor that if you've read the source material, you know where it's going. And I believe these things that they're kind of slowly dripping out to us as the audience are in that direction. So I don't want to like spoil too much for you as someone who hasn't seen and or read some of the more extensive stuff, because the new like Numenor and everything, like I believe I know where this is going, and it's going to be interesting because again, they don't talk about Galadriel's part in this because that's not mentioned in any of this. So her being there is not that it's not possible. I guess, again, it is theoretically possible, but it's not mentioned in the source material that she's there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it was nice that they had that painting with Elrond in there, and that's the only time we get to see Elrond in this episode.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed as well. And also no Bronwyn and her son kind of thing. And it was, I mean, really, this episode feels like it's very much in three parts. There's the Galadriel stuff going on in Numenor. There's catching up with the Harfoots, and then there is a lot of stuff. And I feel terrible because I still don't know this elf's name.
Arondir.
Thank you, Arondir. All of the things with the orcs and just him trying to escape from this. And I was very surprised that he didn't. But then I guess now we have the introduction of Adar coming up with the next episode. But yeah, this is weird. I don't know what's going on with these. What these orcs are having all of these people digging for and what they're doing. And it feels like they've been doing this for a long time, because you can see at one point there's a long shot and you can see all of the like tents that they've built up along this long path that they're doing. And he says that they're having them dig for something. And I'm like, okay, what is it that they're looking for?
Definitely not the Ring of Power.
No. Yeah, of course.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. I have no earthly idea.
No middle earthly idea?
No middle earthly idea. Zero. I have no idea what they could be digging for. Again, I'm not the most well-versed on the lore, but again, I'm not sure any of this has lore in its background. Right. I don't think Adar is a completely new character.
Right.
So again, the show, we know who the main baddie of this show is, but we can't expect that they're not going to have like sub-villain characters throughout the show's run. Even though, again, like ostensibly we know who the bad guy of the show is going to be. We know where this, again, we don't know maybe where the show ends, but we know the end game of the final season of this show.
Right.
For sure. But there's got to be like smaller, weird villains in between now and then, because again, I feel like it would get really boring if it was just Sauron over and over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing that I like about the Lord of the Rings, the movies, is, you know, you've got Wormtongue, you've got Saruman, and, you know, you've got the Witch King of Angmar and all of these other villains. And it's like, even the guy who looks like Harvey Weinstein, the orc at the end, it's like he kind of shows up in the third movie, and it's like, well, you could have been in here a lot more. And he's a lot better of a villain than that guy with the one arm from the Hobbit movies.
Anything's better than those CGI nightmares. And you know what? Again, back to this show, all of these orcs seemingly prosthetics, seemingly makeup. And man, they look really good.
They look good. They sound really good as well. Their voices are terrific.
Somebody said, you know what? That whole weird accent, that means a New Zealander accent or Australian accent. That down under accent that the orcs had in the previous installments of this series, great. I mean, that's what, you know, I would contend probably one of the reasons Hobbit didn't work. They never really let those orcs talk. They were always speaking orcish, the orc language.
Mm-hmm.
They were never interacted with him in any substantive way. But man, I mean, those first three movies, you know, Man Flesh, Meat's Back on the Menu, Boys, like there's a lot of really memorable lines and performances from the orcs. So we're seeing it again here. It's like a return to form in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious because I know there's that whole idea of what orcs are fallen elves or something.
Corrupted elves, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to play a part in this, or if the whole thing with Adar is going to kind of sweep that under the rug, or what's going on. But yeah, this whole thing of them not being able to stand the sun, that's to me more trollish, I suppose, though the trolls turn to rock when you expose them to sunlight. So yeah, I'm very curious where they're going to go with all of these orcs. And they do, like we said last week, they seem like a threat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they seem like a threat here. I mean, you have Arondir seemingly get the upper hand on them several times, but ultimately, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And some of that is brutal. When the one guy gets the axe in the back, I was like, oh, that's not good. And I knew when he got up to the top and the guy was just standing there, I was like, oh, he's got a big old arrow in the chest. And
Boromir style.
Yeah, he gets Boromired pretty good.
Yeah. But again, like I was really not expecting the show to be this dark.
No.
And like it's pretty, it has a pretty interesting violent edge to it that I'm not saying that the original Lord of the Rings didn't have it, but the original Lord of the Rings was rather bloodless. And this isn't bloodless. I mean, there's decapitations and severings of arms and legs in the original Lord of the Rings. At least there's heads getting cut off in the first movie. the big Orc gets his head cut off. I mean, there's plenty of bloodshed in that second movie with Helm's Deep and in the third movie with Minas Tirith, but it's rather bloodless. And in this, it's not. And I appreciate that in a way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that. And even the Harfoots are pretty hardcore when it comes to this whole thing of like, you're going to be in the back of the caravan, and if you can't keep up, here's a whole list of all the people that couldn't keep up before, and they're basically assumed to be dead. We have people in the back of the caravan. They don't make it all the time. So here, let's read a whole list of folks that we just don't see anymore.
Right. The back of the caravan is the death knell if you're part of the Harfoot community. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I wondered how they were going to tackle these characters of the hobbits, because again, we know that these hobbits-esque characters are where the final characters, the hobbits, these kind of like mild-mannered hobbits end up, but these are not mild-mannered characters in any like stretch of the imagination, which I really appreciate. But I'd be curious to see like where, if we see it during this show or if it's just implied that over time they softened. But I would love to, again, like they don't soften though, but they kind of do, because in the original movies they're like, we don't want to get involved in the acts of the people out in the world. Well,
Bilbo's more concerned about his mother's china and his tea towels than anything else when they first meet him.
Yeah. Don't steal my spoon, Sackville Bagginses.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where those characters are going. I'm not even sure if that character is Gandalf now. Per the mythology of Tolkien, it can't be Gandalf.
Right.
I mean, we know that much, but like it could be one of the Blue Wizards. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that character's Gandalf anymore.
I still say it's Tom Bombadil, but
Swear to God, I guess it could be. It could be until it's not. I mean,
right.
Any theory is as good as another at this point until they say one way or the other.
This whole thing of it was interesting because Lenny Henry is doing almost the same thing that Elrond did in the first episode, where he's looking for the right words to say. Elrond was providing a script basically to the king of the elves. And here you have Lenny Henry trying to figure out what he's going to say in the next scene to the rest of the Harfoot. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a nice little parallel that they have here. Him trying to come up with the whole like full carts, full bellies type of thing. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm enjoying these characters. I'm curious to see where this goes. I was really glad when they finally exposed faux Gandalf or Tom Bombadil to the rest of the group, and that what's her name, Nori, that she didn't rat out her friend. I was like, oh, that's good. She took the rap there. That was good.
I was gonna say, like, I'm really starting to enjoy all the performances in this show. Mm-hmm. Like, from like you mentioned Lenny Henry already, and the girl who plays Nori is really good. She has a lot of, who she reminds me of a lot, and I'm sure it's intentional. She has those Fellowship of the Ring, Elijah Wood vibes.
Oh yeah.
She's very lit, very, I don't know. She just, if you see her, if you're watching this show, if Frodo is not what comes to mind almost immediately, then maybe the show's not doing as good of a job with it for you as it is for me. But when all I could see every time they showed her in this episode was like, it's just, they're doing the Frodo thing.
Well, she's got those big eyes that they're focusing on quite a bit as well.
Yeah. No, I also really like Lloyd Owen, who we just have only had to see in this episode as well as Elendil. He's, again, a different kind of character than I was expecting. Also, Lloyd Owen, super nice guy. I was thinking like he looked really familiar. I talked to him like the longest time ago for a found footage movie called Apollo 18, where like he's like an astronaut that goes to the moon, and it's like why did we never hear about the last moon landing? It's because of aliens on the moon. It's actually kind of fun, but he's a cool dude, super sweet guy. I'm glad that he has, again, a role in this show because he is one of the main characters. But he's actually, the characters we get introduced to in this episode, I already like them. Like Maxim Baldry as Isildur, his introduction is very interesting. Not what I was expecting for that character. Written very differently from what my expectations were with what I know of the character as someone who has read a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah. It's kind of nice because I don't know that much Lord of the Rings, definitely not compared to you. And I would think that my wife might know less than me, but she's watched the movies, 1,000 times as well. And it was kind of nice when Isildur got introduced. She's like, "Oh, Isildur," and I was like, "Okay, yeah, good. You remember."
Right. Well, and again, like there have been very few kind of points of reference that you can go back to if you have not read, I mean, even the books, but any of the other like source material or lore stuff. There has been very few characters to latch onto other than really Galadriel and maybe Gandalf, whatever the stranger is or whoever he is. But like with the introduction of Isildur and Elendil, you kind of have these characters that you at least know where they're going to end up. And right. You know that Isildur has interaction with something that shows up in those original movies. He interacts with the One Ring. He is the reason all of this happens, which is such a sad thing because again, like that's, where this story is ultimately going. It's, the will of men fails and Isildur is the one whose will fails. For all of us, his will fails is the way it's at least put by Elrond.
Yeah. And it's like you want the best for the guy because he seems like a very decent dude, at least in this episode. And like, I'm very curious about him looking off in the distance and hearing the woman's voice calling his name. It's like, oh, what's going on with that? Yeah.
And again, it's this whole idea of there's like he's fated, right? And they kind of, Elendil kind of hints at it as such, the way he talks to Galadriel. It's like, you still have friends here. My name means elf friend. And it's like, okay, so like I see where this is going. And I like that the show is kind of being very obvious, but I think with a show that has its feet firmly rooted in like deep source material for a series that a lot of people have only a casual surface level appreciation of, because again, those Jackson movies don't really get into the nitty gritty, which I think is the benefit of those movies. Like, they never slow down to exposition dump really, which is such a shock given how much stuff goes on.
Yeah. I think the closest we get to that is those voiceovers from Galadriel where it kind of ties us together, which I'm fine for. I like how every once in a while we'll take a little pause and she'll give us a little, hey, here's what's going on. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's cool. But it doesn't feel like an exposition dump.
No, but again, like that, I think was one of the issues with those original movies that people were always worried about was how do you tell this story that has this much backstory and like working parts under the surface without pulling that back and explaining every single one. It's like, well, just ignore it. Like not ignore it, but like, that's not what's important. It's the action that's important and why the characters are doing what they're doing now. None of the old history of Middle Earth is important. And a lot of the stuff that they cut out in those movies is stuff that just enriches the backstory of the events of the movies. It doesn't even really get into exposition on its own. Some of the scenes do, but a lot of it's just stuff from the books. And that stuff's not really about the previous world. Like the previous world stuff is really the fact that they have to put it at the beginning of Fellowship makes sense, but they're not doing a lot of that even in the book.
No.
The book is all about that whole journey to destroy the ring. Jackson had to put that stuff at the beginning of the movie to give you a idea of where this is taking place and the world that you're about to step into. And I think that this show is still doing a pretty good job of giving the audience drip, 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 drip of new stuff, but still building this world that we're kind of just getting used to. Because, yeah, we're in a new place again. The third or fourth new place of this show in as many episodes.
Yeah. And who knows where the Harfoots are going to end up.
Right, because now they're on the move again. And the stranger is the only reason that the Brandyfoots are not going to get eaten by God knows what. By the bees, I guess. God.
Yeah.
The bees can kill you here even.
And then I'm curious as far as where our elf friend is, because he doesn't know. This whole thing of like, he was carried here. I'm guessing that all of the people from that village that was destroyed, I think they're all in this place as well. So whatever, all these orcs moving all these people in order to do this manual labor, it's like, but he doesn't know where he's at. And he's like, once somebody gets up to the top of this hill, run like hell and send back a legion and we'll take over. But for now, they don't know what's happening.
Yeah. And I also like that they revealed what that symbol means.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, because
that was hiding in plain sight.
Right, which I appreciated. Again, like I hadn't even thought of that. I'm sure that there, plenty of people online and or smarter than me, watchers of the show, realized it. But yeah, I mean, I guess that symbol is just signifying where to go in the Southlands to meet. I guess all the orcs are convening, and again, we know that. Given where the show ends up, given what happens with the Southlands and turning into Mordor, like we know where that's going. But it's nice that this is like we're so far removed from that this is like the Southlands are where the Harfoots are running around, which is like scary to think about, knowing where we know this is going to go. Like, where are they going to go? Because if they don't get out of there, like there's not going to be much left for them to stick around for. So again, like it's interesting because. Again, I didn't realize that maybe that's why the hobbits are where they are, is because of what happens in the Southlands.
Right, because if memory serves, the Shire is upper left-hand corner of the map of Middle Earth. Like, I don't know if we compare Middle Earth to like the United States or something, but basically they'd be up near Washington and Idaho, those kind of things. And
again, like, it's for those of us that are trying to like place where this world is that we've seen before, but not in this like state that it's in. It's interesting to see, the Southlands before it became Mordor, or, I don't know. I'm appreciating that this show is really kind of just taking its time, because realistically, we've only gotten like 5-6 scenes with Nori. Like overall so far in the show, like with Arondir, we've gotten like maybe 5 scenes. Like it's really throwing its net rather wide, and we're still in the growing phase of this show. We're still getting new characters introduced. And I'm curious, like if we're going to be having new characters introduced all the way until the final episode of this season, or is there going to be like a moment where, all right, the pieces are on the board and now we're going to start moving them around? And like, I'm curious if the next episode is that moment or not, because it's got to get there at some point this season.
Yeah. I mean, we did take those breaks in Lord of the Rings to move to here's what Saruman is up to. Here's what Wormtail's up to, those kind of things. Wormtail. I'm in Harry Potter land. Wormtongue is up to, but they're very few and far between. We really dealt with our heroes more than our villains. I'm curious if they're going to focus on some of the villains a little bit more in this episode, in this season.
Yeah, well, and I hope so, because again, like this episode is titled Adar, Adar, the character that they show at the end of the episode. And yeah, I mean, it looks to me that he's an elf.
Yeah. I'm almost wondering if maybe he fell from the sky too, but he would have had to have fallen a long time beforehand.
Right.
But and Adar is an elvish word, I think.
Yeah, which means father, I think. So, and he's played by, once again, another Game of Thrones connection. He's played by Benjen Stark's Joseph Mowley. Yeah, Mowley. And he's one of those actors that was in like the first season of Game of Thrones, and then like forgot about his character until the second to last season, showed up once, and that was it. So he might have that similar kind of role in this show. I don't know. Maybe he'll be a season-long villain, but they did a good job of setting him up as kind of the leader of whatever's going on here with the orcs. And again, like there's a level of intrigue here that, again, it's not that I didn't have it with the original movies, but where those stories are going. There's very little intrigue to be had unless you just genuinely don't know the narrative, and you don't know that Gandalf's going to come back, and you don't know that Gollum goes into Mount Doom with the ring. Like there are some things in that if you don't know that narrative, those are surprising. But I really like that in this, it's like, yeah, even as someone who has read the books in the Silmarillion, like even I am glad that it's like they're introducing things that I no idea. I'm just as much along for the ride as you are.
Yeah, I don't need to see how all the puzzle pieces fit together before, the puzzle was built. It's just like, no, just take me on a ride. That's what I want.
Right. And the best kinds of these stories, like the best Star Wars stories where they go back and they're giving the characters, stuff that they did in between, because now like, well, you know, like between Return of the Jedi and whatever, like you have plenty of stories there to mine for any of those characters for the comic books that you want to tell for Han Solo, what he was up to between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Like that's a long period of time. But again, I cannot give this show enough praise for setting it thousands of years ahead of time.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah, because it's still paying off dividends with this show. Like it really is. Because the things feel really familiar, but at the same time, they feel so just a little tweak different. That again, you know, even though we've seen these orcs before and we've seen the hobbits before, they're different enough that you're like, oh, okay, I'm on board. And I you know we said we weren't going to talk about it, but like the hate for this show, I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
I mean, I get it from like a theoretical standpoint. Like you're taking something that I love and you're expounding upon it in a way that maybe is less than your perception of respectful towards that source material. But the show itself is not bad.
Yeah. I mean, really, what can men do against such reckless hate?
Stunning.
It's so dumb. I mean, yeah, because we're both on the same Reddit groups, and it's just like, what is your fucking problem, man? Like, people are just losing their fucking minds about this.
Yeah, it's just a TV show. It's a relatively well-made TV show. I don't think people would be getting as upset if it wasn't Amazon. I think the whole Amazon connection makes it a little easier for people to shit on because it's more like, oh, we're taking our 2-cent pot shot at Bezos as opposed to really taking a pot shot at the show.
Right.
Because everybody who made the show, they had the source material's best intentions in mind. You know, it's clear to me. This show is not being made cheaply. The show is not being made poorly. The show has good writing and good performances. If this show looked like shit and the people who were performing weren't invested, then I would agree it is a bad show because it's, again, the last 6, 7, and 8 years of Game of Thrones were expensive TV. Those seasons of Westworld that you don't like are expensive TV. Just because it's expensive and it's being made by a big studio doesn't mean it's going to be good. But you can hate on the show all you want for whatever reason, but don't say it's a bad show because it's not a bad show. It's maybe just not doing the source material, the service and lip service and strict fucking religious devotion that so many people expect of this kind of show. It's an expectation thing. That's all this boils down to.
Yeah. Just get them under control, folks. You know, You should have already been disappointed enough by The Hobbit that you shouldn't be looking forward to anything.
Right. Again, like, you know, if that's where people want to really, if this is the hill people want to die on, I'm just glad that we're getting more Lord of the Rings in 2022. I'm sorry. I am going to be that guy who says, I'm glad that we're getting more content of something I love. And hopefully this show continues to be good because this episode, we don't get to see my favorite part of the show so far, but I'm still on board and I still really like this show. I'm still enjoying this show immensely. You were asking a lot of questions. This is a build-up episode. This is a setup episode. Yeah. And honestly, this has been the weakest of the first 3 episodes, I think.
I will agree with you just because we don't get very many answers in this. I described it to Andrea as a connector episode. You know, we're just moving from point A to point B. We'll get more Elrond next episode, I'm sure. We'll just keep moving those pieces around. And that's right. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with us moving these pieces on this chessboard as long as we're moving in the right directions.
Right. And again, like that, you know, it's funny because this is really mirroring Game of Thrones, that first season, very hard, where it's like, we're going to introduce you to the core characters in that first episode. And then the second and third and probably fourth, maybe even fifth episode, we're going to send them out into the world where they're going for the rest of the season. And then probably right at the end of the season, maybe the last or second to last episode, we'll take them out of that setting to set them up where they're going to be at the beginning of next season. Yeah. But that's so Game of Thrones because that's exactly what that show did. And I feel like I feel like this show is going that way and there's nothing wrong with that because that show was immensely successful in its first couple seasons. And if that's where this is going, like, cool, because the characters they've introduced are interesting. The situations that they've put them in are hopefully going to pay off in interesting ways. And we've got 4 more years of this. So at least we know that the story is in its infancy now, and it can only continue to expand. And at some point they'll have to stop expanding, but like where they go next, I don't know. It's exciting though.
And to your point from either last episode or the episode before, I mean, at least they have a plan for 5 years and then out they go.
Yeah. I don't have to worry about whether or not Adar is going to be a villain for the next 3 seasons. He's probably not going to be. He might not even be past 2 episodes from now. So
who knows?
Yeah. But that's, again, I don't watch a lot of TV live for this reason, because it's like a lot of prognosticating.
Yeah.
And a lot of these shows where these kinds of, not this show, the show that we're watching, but this kind of podcast show, a lot of the time is spent on prognosticating. What do we think is going to happen next? And it's like, ultimately, I'm still going to watch. So, like, I don't know. Like what happens next? I think we all know where this season ends up, obviously, but I don't know. I don't know where the next 2 or 3 episodes go. And that's exciting for me because I don't watch TV like this very often.
My prediction is that by the end of the first season, there's going to be some rings forged.
You think by the end of the first season, we're going to get that?
I feel like it. At least the plan to forge them is going to be complete.
We'll have that scene where Celebrimbor actually unravels that scroll and shows it to Elrond.
Exactly.
Yeah. You think that's how the first season ends, with him like looking at a ring like this with Mount Doom exploding in the background? Like,
right.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. That's what it's going to be. Ooh. If that's not it, I'll be surprised. I mean, again, like the show has to telegraph certain things, but.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're not making a lot of predictions, because one of my most favorite things in the world was watching Screen Rant just implode when they were doing recap shows for WandaVision. And it was just week after week after week. It was like, Mephisto's going to be showing up. Yeah, Mephisto's coming. Oh, here's another point. Oh, you see this? That means Mephisto. Mephisto's going to be here. Da, 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 da. And then when Mephisto didn't show up, I was just like, man, fuck you.
That's why it's like, that's why I don't want to traffic in that. It's like, it ain't fun for me. It ain't fun for you. Yeah. I have listened to plenty of Westworld podcasts where they spend half the time. Well, this is in the real world. And by the end of the season, it's like the yarn that you spun was much more interesting than the one that the show did. And in a lot of ways, that hurt my enjoyment of the show.
Exactly.
Which the other thing I want to say about this show, they are definitely not asking me to wonder where they spent the money.
Oh, no.
Some of those shots of them going into Numenor, for fuck's sake, man, that is just stunning cinematography.
There's no way they're shooting any of this stuff on a boat in a harbor. I mean, I'm just watching this going, this is all like fake stuff, but it looks so real, right? They're not shooting this in a harbor when they have people coming off of these boats and stuff, right? This is all fake.
I would assume so.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think so.
And it looks gorgeous.
It all looks amazing.
Them out on the water. I was like, oh my God, this looks great.
Yeah, when they're going on those ships, when Galadriel and Halbrand are on that ship with Elendil going into Numenor, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Like, yeah, this is setting, we talked about The Mandalorian. I think we've talked about this like off recording. Like The Mandalorian has kind of set the tone for, I think, TV and like the quality of the effects and stuff, because every episode of that first season of The Mandalorian is like a little movie. The CGI quality is so crazy. But this show, I think, is going to be like, what show could ever be more expensive than this show at this point? Right? Like, really? Like, what show could do more CGI wise than this show is?
Right.
Game of Thrones doesn't, like, even when Game of Thrones was doing its end game stuff in its 7th and 8th season, even if it had the budget of this show, we would have gotten the version of that show that we wanted. It's almost like Game of Thrones ran into its budget problems when it needed to not. This show is never going to have that problem. Amazon will, like, Jeff Bezos, clearly, if the rumors online are to be believed that his nose is sticking into the Lord of the Rings ant pile, he's probably never going to let this show alone, and he will never let this show look like shit. That's for sure. And it hasn't so far. I mean, everything about this show production wise has been impeccable. If it doesn't win some awards for that alone, I will be surprised.
Yeah. I imagine they're going to be sweeping the award categories next year.
Yeah, I would hope so. Because man, from Bear McCreary's music, which is getting better with every episode, to just again, the visuals have been ramping up every episode, but now when you have this approach into Numenor, the show is really flexing its visual muscles, both the CGI aspects to it and just the quality of where they're shooting. I mean, they're shooting in Middle Earth. I mean, New Zealand is Middle Earth. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
oh yeah.
You know, like you see it and it's just like, we're home, folks. Like, that's the way it feels. Like, it's, you know, I don't know. We talked about this a long time ago on your episode of your show, The Projection Booth, about the Frighteners, where they shot that movie in New Zealand trying to be California. And it's like, there's nothing you can do to take New Zealand out of New Zealand. That look is just so, when you watch something like Dead Alive, you know, because that's set in New Zealand. Like, that has that feel to it. But then when you watch something like Lord of the Rings, it's that same feel, because Middle Earth, whether or not Middle Earth was being set in, you know, England, and that's where it's supposed to be in the books, like, it will always be New Zealand for me visually, because it just looks it. It just looks it.
Kind of makes me want to go to New Zealand.
Same. Like Hobbiton to go see.
Oh.
Yeah. That would be something else to see, I feel.
On the next episode, we're going to be talking about episode 1.4. Gotta love those title names, man.
Yeah, we were wrong about this episode. Maybe the next episode will be titled Mithril, because I would assume the next episode we have to revisit the dwarfs. So I'm going to go 2 episodes without coming back to Elrond and the dwarfs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe it'll be titled Mithril Found.
Oh,
yeah.
With an exclamation mark?
Question mark.
But until then, Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me over at cstachiw.com, cstachiw.com. That's my link tree. Go there for all the things that I work on. Mostly TV shows from the 70s involving old curmudgeon-y white men as cops.
Yes.
Yeah. And Mike is on those episodes too, because we do those episodes together. Columbo, Barney Miller. You can find all that at cstachiw.com. What about you, Mike? Where can people find you and your shows?
Well, when I'm not being an old white curmudgeon detective from the 1970s, I am talking about movies at the Projection Booth, which you can find at projectionboothpodcast.com. Yeah. Until then, we want to thank everybody for listening. Come on back next week as we talk about that famous episode 1.4. And
guess we're never getting titles for them, baby.
We're not getting those titles. So we'll talk about that next week on the Podcast of Power.